They were targeted. It was an execution.
A brutal killing.
There was a blood trail all the way out from his room to the front door.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
We started to focus in now on that 24 hours of who they may have been in contact with.
He would make statements like he wanted to kill them, that they deserved to die.
She had made threats that she was going to come by and shoot up his law firm.
He has the ability to gain the entire, very successful business. We're talking millions and millions of dollars.
The truth will be revealed.
I said, two things are going to happen today. I'm going to go home tonight, and you're going to go to jail for murder.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Coral Gables, a haven of wealth and luxury nestled a few miles south of Miami.
It's beautiful. I mean, Coral Gables is considered, I think they call it like the little Venice of South Florida because of its waterways.
Safe and usually quiet.
In the city of Coral Gables, murders are very few and far between.
But in August 2004, that peace is violently shattered.
Coral Gables 911.
They shot me.
They shot you?
Yes.
With what?
I don't know.
When uniformed officers from the Coral Gables Police Department arrived on the scene, they were met at the door by John Sutton.
He's bleeding from the head. They see wounds to his hands and possibly the shoulder. They ask him what's going on. He says, I'm not sure, I've been shot. And they ask him if there's anyone else inside the house. And he says, yes, his wife.
Inside, police discover a bloodbath.
We found a major blood scene in the southeast bedroom, which was where John was. There was a blood trail all the way out from his room to the front door. We located Susan Sutton in the southwest bedroom in bed where she was shot and she was obviously deceased.
John had been shot multiple times in the face. He was in pretty bad shape. He had to be transported immediately to the hospital.
As John is raced to the ER, Miami-Dade homicide detectives Rosanna Cordero-Stutz, Larry Bellew, and Art Nanny are tasked with finding Susan Sutton's killer. They must now uncover every significant detail from the last 24 hours of her life.
Establishing a timeline is absolutely critical because you have to have some sort of foundation upon which to build a case. You have to know where someone was before they were murdered, what they were doing, who they were with, because all of those things can lead to a potential suspect.
Their top priority is to speak with the sole survivor of the attack, John Sutton. But he's in critical condition, undergoing 14-hour emergency surgery.
We don't know John's gonna make it. In fact, our suspicion is John is not gonna make this. We're looking at a double homicide.
I was doing bad. No doubt from the loss of an excessive amount of blood. I was given last rites the next day, Monday morning, and also the next day, Tuesday morning. Somehow on Wednesday, I started to come around and make some improvement.
John wakes up from a medically induced coma to find his room filled with detectives looking for answers.
John tries really hard to try to piece together what occurred that evening, but the truth is that he has a very hard time. He's got some big holes in his memory from the trauma.
And it's not just the result of shock.
The gunshot wound that entered John Sutton's head detached his retinas.
I had a multiplicity of injuries. When the pain medication wore out, everything hurt, and I was blind. I don't remember being shot in the head at all.
The details about that night come slowly and in fragments.
We slept in separate rooms as a result of my snoring. At about 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit before 10, Susan went into the bedroom. I went to the bathroom. While I was going to the bathroom, I heard a big bang. I had no idea what it was, but if it had been something serious, I expected that Susan would have called out or said, "Help me," or something happened. I went to the bed. I sat on the bed. In comes a man with a black hat, black shirt, black pants, and the firing started. It felt as though I had taken a dive and landed right on my face. And I was confused, didn't know what was going on.
Despite his best efforts, John gives police almost nothing to go on.
It was safe to say that he did not know the person who shot him. He really had no description of the person at all.
And having drifted in and out of consciousness for days, it's only now that detectives are able to tell John the fate of his wife.
The reaction was, I basically lost all emotional ability to recognize what had happened, what was happening, and what would happen. I just was out of it. I still feel guilty that I didn't go to the funeral.
John's loss is compounded by the mystery of who killed his wife and why.
From an investigative point of view, you have to consider who was their intended target. Was it that they were after John and Susan was just collateral damage? Was it someone who was angry with Susan and John happened to be home at the time?
A clue from the crime scene offers a potential motive.
The responding officer advised that there was a point of entry of a sliding glass door opposite of where the victims were shot.
We considered the possibility that what occurred was actually a robbery, home invasion gone wrong.
But other details don't support this idea.
Susan had jewelry everywhere, expensive jewelry. There was cash and credit cards in plain sight, where someone who had the motive of money would have easily been able to grab it and take it with them when they fled, but that didn't happen. Whoever came in went across the entire house, literally from one end of the residence to the exact opposite end, as far as you could go, shot both people, and then turned around and fled.
For the detectives, there's only one other option left.
There was a lot of bullet trauma to Susan Sutton, which meant that a lot of anger was directed towards her.
It was an execution. They were targeted. They were going to kill John and Susan Sutton.
Their only hope of finding Susan's killer now rests with the timeline.
We started to focus in on that 24 hours of who they may have been in contact with.
They learn of a celebration dinner John says had taken place just hours beforehand.
Susan cooked for her own birthday party and some southwestern salad, as I recall.
The people that were there was her husband, John Sutton, her son, Christopher Sutton, Christopher Sutton's girlfriend, Juliet Driscoll, and Teddy Montato.
Teddy Montato was John Sutton's partner in the law firm. He was also a good close friend of the family. We also learned that Juliet Driscoll was a secretary that worked for John.
John and Teddy specialized in civil litigation, and some recent success was also being toasted that night.
They had won a big case, and they were celebrating having gotten that money.
Teddy tells police that having arrived at the house at 7 o'clock, he then left at around 9:30. This makes him the last person to see the Suttons before the attack. Strangely, he's also the first person to show up at the crime scene.
I was the one that told him officially that Susan had died, that she had been declared dead on the scene. And he became very emotional about that. He was very visibly shaken by that news. That seemed a bit above and beyond what most normal people would have reacted. He wasn't blood relative. He was a friend of the family, lived in another house.
As Detective Cordero Stutz probes further, her curiosity turns into suspicion.
Teddy tells me that he is a competitive shooter and that he had been earlier that Sunday shooting, and therefore he would have gunshot residue on his hands were we to test him. When we're in the midst of a homicide investigation, somebody, clearly identifying themselves as, I'm gonna have gunshot residue, is something that a bit of a red flag.
The unsolicited information puts the spotlight firmly on John Sutton's business partner.
It's visible that he is in conflict. I felt that there was something he wanted to tell me, but he just didn't know how or was afraid to.
But is he a killer? There's still a big question mark.
Teddy Montoto's admission of handling a gun only hours before the shooting of John and Susan Sutton has detectives questioning whether he was responsible for the attack.
There are many reasons why Teddy could have been a very plausible suspect in this shooting. He has the ability to gain the entire, very successful business from the death of his partner.
In some murder cases, money becomes the motive for the murder. How it plays out in the sense of who promised money, who paid money, all of that is semantics to me. Money is a great motivator. Money makes people kill.
Detective Cordero Stutz presses Teddy further, but his answers only deepen the mystery.
He told me that he had been on the phone with Susan, and he heard what he described as a loud bang and maybe even a gunshot, and that then the phone went dead. But then he kept calling back and wasn't able to get a hold of anyone. And eventually he decided that the best course was to actually drive back to the house to make sure they were okay. And when he gets there, the police are on the scene and have it taped off, and he's unable to actually go up to the house.
Detectives hone in on why Teddy is on the phone with the wife of his business partner so late at night.
It just didn't add up. He just left a party, and if they were going to have conversations pertaining to business and all stuff, you'd think it would have happened during that time frame. We've got to find out now why he was this important to Susan Sutton to be having a conversation at that time of the night.
Teddy was strongly affected by what had happened to Susan. He's extremely nervous, and I had a very strong feeling that he wasn't being forthcoming. Investigations are a percentage of fact-finding, but it's also a percentage of your own personal experience and what other people call their gut feeling. All of these bits and pieces that kind of rub you the wrong way, they're not enough, obviously, in regards to making an arrest or anything like that, but it's definitely something that makes you dig deeper. So I discussed it with the lead investigator, and we talked about the possibilities of asking him to submit to a lie detector test.
Polygraph examinations are extremely helpful. In certain circumstances, it is to send messages to the person, number one, that you're having interviewed. You don't believe them. We don't know what the person is lying about, but we know they're lying.
Teddy agrees to the test and then fails.
Specifically, he fails in regards to the relationship between himself and Susan.
Despite this, Teddy continues to protest his innocence, so Cordero Stutz turns her focus to the physical evidence.
When Teddy Montoto responds to the police station to take his polygraph, he admits to us that he's now brought his weapon with him. It was a 9mm, which was consistent with the casings on the scene. And we impounded it and tested it to see if, in fact, this was the murder weapon.
While the detectives await the ballistics result, they begin to question others they can place on the victim's 24-hour timeline.
In any investigation, you want to interview anybody who has knowledge about what happened just prior to the incident, if you can. So just reconstructing what happened that night altogether was very important.
Chris Sutton and his girlfriend Juliet Driscoll were also at the house that night.
I learned that they had been at the house for dinner around 7 p.m. and that Christopher and Juliet had left around 9 p.m. to go see a movie.
As the team looked to confirm the young couple's alibi, they also delved deeper into the Sutton family history.
We had learned that Christopher was born to a 15-year-old mother and was adopted at a young age.
Well, there were infertility issues, and therefore we went the adoption route. Well, she was thrilled. She couldn't have been more happy, as he was an infant and a toddler.
But Chris's behavior then takes a troubling turn.
As he matured into a teenager, became difficult to get along with. He was sort of bucking his system, having more and more problems getting along with his parents.
He was always getting into trouble. When he was 17 years old, Susan approached John and said, "Look, we need to do something with Chris."
They decided to send him to a strict behavioral reform school in Samoa.
We were at our wits' end, and we had lengthy conversations, and this seemed like this was a good way to go.
The idea was to help Chris find his way, but even here, he remained defiant.
Well, there was rumors of some very hard discipline.
One of the things that they said was occurring at the school is that there was like an isolation room where if you broke the rules, you were locked away in this isolation room for hours at a time.
And he thought he was going to get out when he turned 18 years old. But he didn't realize that John Sutton went to a court and had an order signed to keep him until he completed the school, which infuriated Christopher Sutton.
The disturbing details of his past are enough to make Chris a potential suspect.
Christopher has a history. He's been in trouble before. He's given his parents a hard time. But the night of the incident, he's not there.
According to Chris, they arrived at the theater at 9:30 p.m. They then sat down to watch the film at 10 o'clock, and it ended a few hours later.
Juliet confirms that she and Christopher had gone to the movies and that they had then afterwards gone home and gone to bed. Once we found out what movie theater they'd gone to in the time, we were able to get the CCTV footage of the two of them leaving the movies, which was sometime around midnight.
The couple's alibi is rock solid. So the detectives delve further into the Suttons' final day. This leads them to John's thriving legal business.
I got up early and went to the office at about 9:30, checked my mail, reviewed some cases.
Some of the closest friends that we spoke to said that John was the type of lawyer that would take on any case. He wouldn't shy away from a case where other lawyers would.
When I say that he won a case and it was a big payout, we're talking millions and millions of dollars.
In the time period, June, July, and August, we had resolved several substantial personal injury cases. The total gross of all of these settlements was nearly $4 million. And in fact, Thursday, which would have been August 19, before the incident, one of those checks came in for $1,350,000, and Susan asked Christopher to take it to the bank.
It was a business that could have easily created enemies. And in fact, it did.
One of the cases John settled was a $100,000 case, I believe, against a woman. She had made threats against John that she was going to come by and shoot up his law firm.
She had a tremendous grudge. I was the worst thing that there could have been. She filed complaints with the Florida bar against me. She wanted me dead. She hated me.
Police are now considering the possibility that a vengeful killer stalked and shot John Sutton and his wife over a lawsuit.
If someone is attacked and the first thing you do is run their name, and there's already been someone documented that they have been threatening to cause them harm, of course you're going to take that seriously.
As they probe deeper into the death threat, the detectives uncover a disturbing piece of information.
One of the things that we learned is that a neighbor said that they heard a boat crank up sometime around 10:30 and take off behind John Sutton's house at a high rate of speed.
The Sutton home backed up to a very large canal, and that particular witness said that around that time she had observed this boat speeding away.
And we learned later that she owned that type of boat.
So one of the things we had to do was to verify where the boat was at the time of the murder. One of the detectives was tasked with finding that information out, and they were able to obtain video footage of her boat docked at the time of the murder in her slip.
It just did not fit that this boat may have been used to gain access to the Sutton property.
But as an investigative lead, we have to do the interview and make sure, or either rule her out or keep her in the investigation. We spoke to her. We didn't have any belief that she did that.
With the woman cleared, detectives turn back to Teddy Montoto. The ballistics report on his gun has finally landed on Cordero Stutz's desk.
When the results came in, it turned out that it was not the murder weapon.
But Teddy's not off the hook yet.
We are able to rule out that that's the weapon that was used in the murder, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been another 9mm.
So she presses him on what he's hiding.
Once we confronted Teddy with the fact that he had failed the polygraph, he quickly admitted to us that the reason why he failed it was because he and Susan were involved in a romantic relationship and had been for several years.
The confession offers up a whole new motive for the attack.
After he admits that he's involved in a relationship, you have someone who has the oldest of all reasons for murder, which is a love triangle.
A love triangle in murders is often a very overwhelming consideration because someone may feel, for example, that they've been wronged by somebody, that they were promised something. I'll leave my wife, I'll leave my husband for you. And this person's been kept on the hook for, in some cases, years. Police have to look at that because someone being jilted can be a very strong factor for murder.
Teddy says that the reason why he lied originally was because he wanted to protect Susan's honor. At this point, she is now dead. Nothing's gonna change that. And if he could have kept from her family, her children, and her husband that she was having an extramarital affair, then that was something he was gonna try to do. Teddy claimed that he was at home at the time of the shooting, that he was on the telephone with Susan. Using the phone records, we were able at that time to verify that he was in fact speaking to her from his residence, which was a couple of miles away from the scene of the crime. Teddy's ultimately ruled out as a suspect.
But the admission devastates his friend and colleague.
I felt that I had been betrayed. I felt that I had been tricked. I felt that I had been deceived left and right. And it was just one more problem on top of the stack of problems.
The suspect list is now down to 0, frustrating John beyond measure.
I was quite a difficult victim because I kept asking, where are the police reports? I want the police reports. What's going on? Who's doing what? What's the investigation? And they were not forthcoming.
So it has to be a totality when it comes to a homicide investigation. It's not just finding the person who committed the crime. It's saying, this person may have done it for A, B, C, and D reasons, but they didn't. It is a lot of work, but you absolutely have to be thorough.
Weeks into the investigation, that diligence pays off when the detectives notice something unusual.
I was assigned a task of collecting the phone numbers from the Suttons, John and Susan, Chris Sutton, Julia Driscoll, Teddy Montano.
What stands out are the records belonging to Christopher Sutton.
It turned out there had been a pattern of phone calls for several weeks, up to leading to the night of the shooting.
162 times from July 19th through August 23rd.
The last of those calls comes close to midnight on the night of the murder, and it's a moment captured on camera.
He probably wasn't more than 50 to 100 feet outside the doors when he immediately gets on the phone.
What caught my attention when I observed the video is the fact that Chris, upon leaving the movie theater, is quickly reaching for his cell phone and dialing it and getting on the phone. And Juliet is actually a couple of feet away from him and kind of, lagging behind him. You would kind of think that after a movie like that with your fiance, you might be holding her hand and asking her what she thought of the movie, as opposed to getting on the phone and calling someone else.
We learned who he spoke to at that particular time was a guy by the name of Garrett Kopp.
He was young, somewhere between 19 and 20. We learned that he had a girlfriend who he had a child with. He had a past for breaking and entering, misdemeanor past for dealing in drugs. He appeared to be going nowhere in life.
Kopp seems like a petty criminal, until they discover a detail about his most recent run-in with police.
We learned that he had been arrested by Homestead Police Department the day after the murder.
Homestead is probably 18 to 20 miles south of the city of Coral Gables.
And at that point, Art and I were, wow.
As an investigator, I don't believe in coincidences. Certainly in homicide investigations, there's no such thing as coincidence. There's a reason why things happen.
So I called down to the Homestead Police Department. I asked him, I said, please tell me it was some type of assault. He says it was. I said, please tell me a gun was involved. He says, well, there was a gun involved. I said, please tell me it's a Glock. He says, it was a Glock, 9mm. I said, now please tell me you have that weapon. He goes, I do.
Detective Larry Bellieu's gut tells him he may have located the murder weapon that killed Susan Sutton.
At that point, we retrieved that weapon from Homestead, and that weapon was submitted to our firearms examiner, who matched that weapon with the projectile evidence removed from Susan and from the crime scene, and learned that it was the gun used to kill Susan Sutton and shoot John Sutton.
Garrett Kopp now becomes bigger than life in our investigation, and now we've got to start figuring out what's going on with Garrett Kopp.
Despite this game-changing discovery, Bellieu is in no hurry to drag Kopp in for questioning.
We do know that we have the weapon. We have Garrett Kopp, who supposedly had the weapon, but we still wanted to build the case. If we brought Garrett Kopp in, he says, look, I got that weapon from a friend of mine. That's all he has to say, basically. We still don't know that he did it. So during this time, we're still building our investigation by talking with other people.
And the first person on their list is Christopher Sutton.
I was instructed to do just a routine interview. While talking to Chris about Garrett Kopp, he only identified him as a business associate. When asked, what do you mean by business associate, he said he had Garrett Kopp to his parents' house to do some oddball jobs. He didn't elaborate on what those oddball jobs were, except for one particular item, which was after the murder of the mother and the shooting of the father, that he had Garrett Kopp over to remove the carpet from the master bedroom where John Sutton was shot.
But when Kopp's name is floated to others, a very different picture emerges.
My assignment at that time was John. I'm able to interview John after he returns home from the hospital while he's recuperating. John said that Garrett and Christopher were very good friends, that they spent a lot of time together, they hung out together.
Garrett had been in the house before, yes. Probably a few times. I was aware that Garrett had dropped out of school. I was aware that Christopher hung out with him. I believed that Garrett wasn't working and was somewhat of a deadbeat. And this wasn't something that was a good relationship that Christopher was having. I was suspicious of Christopher doing drugs. However, I had nothing to prove it.
As police dig deeper, John's suspicions are confirmed.
We had learned that the two of them were talking about dealing in drugs, and in fact, Chris would give Garrett Kopp drugs to sell so he'd have some money in his pocket.
This introduces a whole new theory about the crime.
Garrett had been to the house. He had worked some odd jobs, so he knew the layout of the house. So as an investigator, ultimately, you have to consider what gain or benefit Garrett had. If it was Garrett who decided that, you know what, I know they've got stuff there to get money, or I know there's drugs there, I'm gonna go get the drugs. We have to consider the possibility that maybe Garrett Kopp did this all on his own.
He had a warrant for his arrest issued by the court for something else. And when he was arrested, I said, well, bring him to my office. And that's when we started interviewing him about the murder.
For the record, state your name. It's Garrett Kopp.
Well, during this whole interview, I'm gaining information that I'm going to be able to attack Garrett on.
Interviewing is an art, it's not a science. Again, it's experience. But when you interview someone, you're looking for a number of tells, if you think of poker for a minute, tells in a poker game. A really good interview can pick it off while he's conducting the interview.
Garrett tells me that the gun that they retrieved that night was not his weapon, that it was somebody else's, which I kind of thought he was going to tell me anyway.
Sometimes when people are starting to cover up, they all start telling little white lies, which, you know, in the end, the more little white lies you tell, eventually you're going to get tripped up.
Well, one of the things I asked Garrett was how close he was with Christopher.
How long have you known Chris Sutton?
About 6, 7 years.
How did you meet Christopher Sutton?
I lived in his neighborhood,
Where was that at?
Sunset Club,
And where's that located?
Sunset and 72nd Avenue.
And I said, do you speak with him on a daily basis? He says, no, not at all. Which we knew to be a lie because we had the phone records. He said he was with his girlfriend that particular night. His girlfriend was out waiting in the lobby. And I said, well, I'm going to be speaking with her right after I get done with you. He knew that he had been put in a corner, and now he's been caught in several lies. And at that point, finally, 3 or 4 or 5 hours later, he gave it up and said, look, he did do this. And I said, well, why? Why did you do this? Was John Sutton or Susan Sutton ever angry at you? Did they ever mistreat you? Did they ever do anything to hurt you? And he said, no. And that's when he revealed it. He said, Chris wanted me to do it, and he told me that if he wasn't gonna do it, Christopher was gonna kill him and his baby boy.
After a grueling interview, Garrett Kopp finally admits to pulling the trigger on both John and Susan Sutton.
Why did you shoot Christopher's parents?
Because my life was in Chris's hands. Told me he'd kill my son if I did not. And me.
But Kopp's revelation implicating the couple's son, Christopher, as the man behind the attack, adds a completely different dimension to the case.
So I know that Garrett Kopp is going to go to jail for first-degree murder. At that point, we have to start trying to build the case against Christopher.
Without alerting Chris, they must find another way of confirming Kopp's story.
And it had to be Juliet Driscoll, his girlfriend. They were close. They'd been dating for several years. She has to know about this. So we brought her in, and I interviewed her all day. We had to be there 10, 11 hours. And she kept denying. I don't know anything about the murder. Christopher never speaks to me about anything. So I had to find some kind of way to get to her. And I said, you know what? She was close to Susan. And I brought that fact up. I said, Susan was good to you. She was like a mother to you. I can't believe you're just allowing this to happen. That family, the whole family was good to you. They gave you a job. And I saw a tear come out of her eye. And I knew that I had her. And at that point, she began to tell me what she knew about Christopher. Chris hated his parents for sending him to the behavioral school and really wanted to do harm to them.
Juliet admits that when he would get very angry, he would make statements like that he wanted to kill them, that they deserved to die.
But we still didn't know why, because this was several years prior. What triggered this now? But then we realized Teddy and John had just settled those multi-million-dollar lawsuits, and Christopher knew about it, and Christopher actually put the money in the bank. He wanted the money. It came down to the hatred, and he just wanted their money. So now I had enough to get an arrest warrant for Christopher Sutton.
After tracking Chris down, he is brought in to face Detective Bellew.
I introduced myself to him. I said, two things are gonna happen today. I'm gonna go home tonight, and you're gonna go to jail for murder. There's not anything stopping that. I said, before you tell me anything though, understand this. I said, I've done my homework. I said, I got a sworn statement from Juliet Driscoll, and he said he wanted to see it. Well, he read certain parts of the statement and put his head down on the table and says, and started crying.
Christopher Sutton is charged with the first-degree murder of his mother and the attempted murder of his father.
Do I feel betrayed, tricked? Absolutely. Does my head hurt now because I got bullets in it? Absolutely. It was cold-blooded murder. There are some things that are temporary and come and go. This is permanent. This doesn't go away.
The 24-hour timeline developed by the detectives reveals exactly how Chris masterminded the plot to kill his own parents.
The story is that Christopher gets a gun, gives it to Garrett, tells him how to get into the house, told him where his parents would be, the fact that his parents would be in 2 separate bedrooms, and exactly where to go to the back of the house and where to do the shooting. The night of the shooting, the family gets together for a celebratory dinner around 7 p.m. at the house. Chris and Juliet are there. Susan and John are there. Teddy Montoto is there as well. They have a nice dinner. They cut a cake for her birthday. Around 9 p.m., Juliet and Christopher leave for this movie. Teddy Montoto leaves the house around 9:30 p.m. And around 10 p.m., both John and Susan retire to their respective bedrooms for the evening. Now, we know that Teddy gets on the telephone with Susan shortly thereafter. They're actually on the phone. He's on his landline, and she's on his cell phone. During that time, we have Garrett Cobb enter the house in the rear sliding glass door, walks from one end of the house all the way around to the other end, and confronts each of them in the bedroom, and he shoots them. He shoots Susan multiple times as she pulls a blanket over her. He shoots John multiple times, striking him up to twice in the face. He leaves John for dead, and he has in fact killed Susan right there on the scene. Shortly thereafter, Christopher and Garrett are on the telephone with each other for Garrett to report to Chris that he has in fact carried out the murder. The timeline it's very important. I think that any reasonable person can look at that timeline and understand how it went from point A to point Z.
We had done our homework. We had turned over every stone and was able to present all these facts beyond a reasonable doubt to this jury on why Chris Sutton was involved in his parents' murder.
In exchange for his testimony, Garrett Kopp receives a sentence of 30 years. Christopher Sutton never admits to his involvement. He is sentenced to life.
There's no doubt in my mind that Christopher orchestrated this for his own means. He saw that he had a great chance for a free ride and to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted to do it. I have not spoken to him since the trial. He needs to be secured and not ever considered for parole. At this point, I have to look forward, not backward. And therefore, I compartmentalize it. I put it in the background. I know it's there. I bring it up too often. Of course, you always question, what else could I have done? What else could I have done? There's nothing else I could have done.
Christopher Sutton had been looking for someone to kill his parents for years, and he found that someone in Garrett Kopp.
I heard this woman screaming, "She's dead."
A brutal killing.
This woman was controlled. She was bound, tied up for a reason.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
He's one of these guys that thinks he's smarter than everybody else.
And he said, "You tell anybody, I'll kill you."
The truth will be revealed.
He thought that he could get away with this.
This poor woman probably begged for her life. It just sends chills all over me.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Nestled between the Indian River and the Atlantic Ocean lies the peninsula of Merritt Island, Florida.
We do have a lot of tourists that come through. It's known for water sports. The whole county is pretty much surrounded by water. A lot of boats, fishing.
But this is a very laid-back county. We're tucked away over here on the coast, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place to live.
But one hot July afternoon, the waterways reveal a grim secret.
The judge that lived on this piece of property, and he was doing yard work. He saw what he thought was a manatee. So he walked to the shoreline. And that's when he saw that it was a woman. He called the sheriff's office, and then I got the phone call.
Brevard County Sheriff's agents Jerry Harrell and Allie Roberts arrive at the scene.
We see a nude body of a female. As a homicide agent, that's not a good day.
The body's in a moderate stage of decomposition, the bloating. It hadn't purged yet, so it was probably twice the size it would normally be. She was tied with rope and some type of duct tape, and it had plastic bags tied to the body.
To catch the killer, investigators will need to unravel the last 24 hours of the victim's life.
The significance of those last movements of your victim are often critical to what happened.
Their first challenge is the woman's identity.
We knew that we had a nude white female, don't know who it is. When you have a name, at least you can do some victimology. You need to start looking at that person. What can you find out about that person? What does that person do for a living? What people are surrounded by that person? We have a fingerprint expert, one of our crime scene techs, and she fingerprints the body.
She is identified as 22-year-old Misty Morse of Indian Harbor Beach.
We find out that she lives a short distance away from there. She lives with her mother. And she grew up here. She's a local girl. Encouraging to me because usually the killer is someone that you know. That gives me a way to go, rather than being an out-of-stater or out-of-towner who was just driven here.
They look to determine how long Misty's body had been in the water.
It can make it more difficult to determine time of death. You have to take into consideration the temperature of the water and control for that. The water may accelerate the internal changes in the body and cause more decomposition at an advanced rate than it would outside the water in cooler conditions.
This is July in Florida. It's hot, the water's warm.
The heat, the insects, the animals, sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge exactly how long a person's been deceased when they're exposed to the different elements.
I'm thinking this body had been in there for several days.
As they start to develop Misty's timeline, a theory forms.
I'm thinking at that point, someone either drove in the dark of night and threw her out of a car, into the river, or she was dumped off of a boat. Looking at the body, it has some bags, like grocery store bags, tied to it. So whoever put her there weighted her down, and she was probably on the bottom for a period of time until those rocks or weights that were used busted through the bags, and then she popped up.
The physical evidence presents disturbing insight into their victims' last moments.
There was also a black rubber cord binding. It was window spline. It's tied around her. She was bound with a piece of nylon rope. It was red and white in color.
There's tape wrapped around the head. She was controlled, she was bound, tied up for a reason. This poor woman probably begged for her life.
They must now decide how much of this harrowing detail to impart to her next of kin.
There's no way of telling somebody in a good way that their loved one is deceased or been murdered. So the best way to do it I've found over the years is to come out and tell them.
Her mother opened the door and looked at us, and it was obvious that we were detectives. And her mother said, "It's her, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, it's her." Her mother had seen the news coverage and told me that, Misty didn't come home, and she just feared that it was Misty. She had been expecting us. She didn't know what to do. It just sends chills all over me. Being a parent and having children Misty's age at that time, you think of your children as children. I felt so bad for her.
Misty's mother contacts her ex-husband, Bob Morse, now living on the west coast of Florida.
I answered the phone, and then I heard her screaming, "She's dead. She's been murdered." And I said, "What? Who is this? What are you talking about?" She said, "Misty, she's dead." I almost fell down. I mean, literally, I almost fell down. I said, "What happened?" She goes, "Somebody killed her. They found her in the water." I said, "Oh." There wasn't anything I could do. It just made no sense at all. The big question is why? What would drive someone to do something like that?
Misty's family provide investigators the details of her life.
Misty's mom started describing Misty, how she was named as a baby, Misty April Morse. She was born on a misty morning.
Misty was very much of a free spirit. She definitely marched to her own tune. At 22, she was just at the stage where she could, get out, go do whatever she wanted to do. I think that at that time, Misty was looking to discover herself and figure out who she was, what she wanted to do, where she wanted to be.
The focus shifts to the last time Misty was seen alive.
Misty's living in a little apartment with her mom. Her mother said that the Wednesday night before, Misty had come home from work around midnight. She said she could hear Misty on the phone talking to someone.
She talked for a few minutes, then a little bit later she received another telephone call.
Misty's mother says the first call came in at 2 a.m. and the second 20 minutes later.
She said Misty opened her door, popped in her room, spun around, asked her, "How do I look?" And Misty was very happy. Misty she said, was going out with someone that she was excited about, someone that she knew. Her mother did not know who that person was. After Misty left, she went back to sleep, got up, and went to work as usual.
Their mom tried to call her a couple times, see what was going on, when she was coming home, all that, and never got a hold of her. I had called her, but not getting a hold of her didn't surprise me. It was not unusual for Misty to take off with friends and go do whatever.
But when she didn't come home the next day, that's when she started worrying.
The details provided by the family, together with the condition of her body, help police determine a likely time of death and a lead on who was responsible.
My opinion, she was last seen early morning hours. Wednesday night going into Thursday morning, she's found on Sunday afternoon. I thought that she had been in the water soon after her mother last saw her.
In the manner in which she left the house, it's pretty obvious that she was leaving with somebody she knew. The person she left with, we were pretty confident it's the person that killed her.
Detectives believe Misty's unidentified caller may be responsible for her murder. They ask her mother for help in identifying who it could have been.
I assured her that we would be there for her and that I would follow this case through. She told me about everybody that she knew in Misty's life.
From the list she provides, one name stands out to her.
Teddy Underwood was I don't know if you'd call him a boyfriend. She met Teddy through a girlfriend of hers. Teddy's a good-looking guy.
Mr. Underwood had dated Misty for a short period of time prior to her death.
Detectives check his background and make an important discovery.
Teddy had other arrests and burglary and some type of sexual assault or battery charge.
When police find a suspect who has some sort of record for sexual assault, it definitely puts a huge flag on that person. They would determine if that person would be a likely suspect to commit murder.
That shot him right to the top of the list.
They use his criminal record to help track him down.
Teddy was a fast talker. He was the guy I had to give a lot of attention to. You're interviewing them, you want to tie them down to a story. Okay, it's not interrogation, it's a fact-finding mission. Just to get a timeline going. And that's very important. We put him on the hot seat. But Teddy responded, he was as cool as a cucumber. And he told me, I said, hey man, I want to help you. But I know you're thinking it's probably me. He says, I understand that. I says, but it's not me. Teddy described it as a short affair. I mean, they may have hooked up a time or two. He moved on, she moved on. It was just one of those things that was short and sweet.
You're judging what they're telling you. Is it making sense? How are they acting? What's their demeanor? Are they trying to be evasive? Are they forthcoming?
Teddy says he had not seen Misty in over a week, and that he was with his friends in the early hours of Thursday morning.
Teddy had an alibi and no interest in the river or being on boats or anything like that. He was so honest and truthful. He had nothing to hide. I go by that gut feeling, and I just did not have it with Teddy. As
Teddy is cleared, They turn to Misty's autopsy for clues that may help to ID the killer.
There was no obvious bullet holes, no obvious stab wounds, but the body itself can give you clues. As an investigator, when you look at a body that's thrown in the water, that's been blindfolded and gagged, I think it's safe to assume that that person was probably alive when they went in the water. Why else would they be blindfolded and gagged? So if that's the case, drowning is a very high possibility.
There is this misperception in general that if water is found in the airway, in the lungs, and in the stomach, that means that an individual drowned. But in actuality, water can enter the body in those places passively after death. So it doesn't mean definitively that an individual died from drowning just because they have water in their lungs, they have water in their stomach.
The medical examiner just would not give us a cause of death. Now, the manner was clear. Homicide.
The examiner probes further, looking for details hidden from the naked eye.
When you're doing the autopsy, not only are you looking at the body itself, but you're looking at everything attached to the body.
There are things that may show up in microscopic examinations, and you don't know what it means until the investigation is advanced and you have more information.
When you're removing the tape from her head, there's a hair present.
It's a clue, but more work needs to be done for it to pay off.
DNA is a very helpful tool in investigating a death, but it's only helpful if you have something to compare it to.
The pathology work is now complete. Misty's father arrives and immediately provides police with a new name.
Misty was telling me about this new guy that she'd met. He was good looking and he had money and he was an ex-Navy SEAL.
She had a semi-long-term relationship with a guy by the name of Brent Huck. And he talked about how he didn't like Brent. Brent was a guy that bragged a lot, had money, and made everybody know it.
Brent Huck has this persona of being like a bad boy. And I think a lot of the girls and a lot of his friends are attracted to that type of personality.
I know that Misty liked to take chances, like most 22-year-olds. I did when I was 22. I think most of us do. We all think that we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof and gonna live forever. I remember thinking that when she was younger, we wondered if she was gonna make it past 18 because she had seemed to have a real bent for getting into trouble, associating with not good people. But we felt like, she was over that. She had been seeing Brent off and on. I said, look, you can do better than this. You don't need this guy. Get away from him, just stay away. He's bad news. Of course, as every parent on the planet knows, the fastest way to get your kid to do something is tell them not to do it.
He says, you really need to talk to Brent Huck.
Detectives track him down at his parents' house, an upscale home on Merritt Island.
Brent didn't know we're coming. We're hoping that, hey, this is gonna take us somewhere. Knocked on the door, we waited, hear a dog barking. Brent finally comes to the door.
We started talking to him about, his relationship with Misty and how it's been going. He tells us that he's known Misty for like 1.5 to 2 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. They've dated for a while. He said that she even moved in with him for a couple months.
As they talk, Agent Harrell spots something suspicious.
I noticed he had abrasions on his knuckles and hands, and I asked him, how'd that happen? And he says, my dog was pulling me with a leash, and I was on my skateboard, and the leash burned my hands. It's not a burn, it's an abrasion. That's a crazy story.
Detectives bring him down to the station for more questioning.
If you didn't have anything to do with this, this will prove to you that you didn't. He had no problem interviewing with us.
Brent reveals to police his relationship with Misty wasn't really over.
It wasn't really a friend, it was more of a benefit, not really a friendship. It was I could go over there. I knew if I talked to her enough, I could still go over there and have sex whenever I wanted to.
He kept her on the string, so to speak.
When was the last time you slept with her?
I'd say the 11th.
The 11th?
Yeah.
Did you want it?
Yes.
Was that at her house or your house?
Her house.
This was 9 days before Misty disappeared. Brent then admits things had recently become more complicated.
He sent some friends of his, called him, he says, hey, we saw Misty and Misty's pregnant?
Brent called to confront her the same night she disappeared.
I asked her, I was like, look, what the hell is going on? When I saw her on the 11th, I was like, you're not pregnant. Why do I keep hearing this? You really ruined my life.
Brent Huck's admission to phoning Misty the night she died has made him the latest suspect in her murder.
He told us, that he called her and bitched her out and told her to stop saying those things because he had a girlfriend.
I bitched at her, and then we settled it out. I remember calling her back 5 minutes after I talked to her and just saying, real quick, saying thanks and hanging up.
So you bitched about the pregnancy?
And you're looking at what this person is telling you. How does that fit into what you know already?
For detectives, the timing of those calls now becomes critical.
When was the last time you actually talked to her?
I want to say right around 3 a.m., 3 or 4.
This is over an hour after the calls that prompted Misty to leave home.
If he puts his time frame in at 3:30 to 4 o'clock, that would have taken him out of that range.
Brent also claims he was nowhere near her house that night.
When you say you went home, you went?
Yeah, just parents' house. Oh yeah, parents' house. At that point, I was fairly intoxicated as well. It was a rough night. That's how I described it.
He had been partying pretty hard that night by the time he talked to her on the phone. It's a whole group of people. They're drinking at a couple different bars. He goes to someone's house, they're still partying.
He called another young lady to give him a ride home.
Brent says that by 4 a.m., he was in bed asleep.
And we spoke to his friends who corroborated that.
He had been dropped off by the young girl. He was at his parents' house for the rest of the night.
Despite the potential motive, his alibi seems solid.
Homicide is a 24/7 job. It's very taxing. Because when you go home, you don't take the gun belt off and throw it down and forget. The cases you're working are forever in your mind. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about something that you need to do or should have done or should have said or should have asked.
Believing the key still lies in identifying Misty's late-night caller, they continue to probe friends and family about her relationships. This brings them to a new name, Bobby Cooper.
I guess Bobby was expecting the law to show up, and we did. We interviewed him, and the guy was all crying. I mean, the guy was upset.
You can learn a lot based on their reactions. It's not necessarily just the words. It could be they start to cry. It could be they overdo the crying. You've conducted so many interviews at this stage that you're relying on your experience to tell you whether that's a real reaction to this scenario or not.
And he told me, he says, hey, I really love this girl. We had just met, and it was a whirlwind, a few days. He's very talkative, and he's answering my questions. He explained when he last saw Misty, they went to a movie, and he'd been calling her and calling her, and he says she didn't answer the phone. I thought maybe that was the end. Maybe that's just her way of ending the relationship. She just won't answer.
Bobby tells police he did finally get through, saying he spoke to Misty the night she disappeared.
I talked to her Tuesday night, and then I talked to her again on Wednesday.
You call her cell phone or what?
Yes. Yeah.
How many times Wednesday did you talk to her?
I talked to her once on Wednesday.
And that was?
7:30, between 7 and 7:30.
He told us he talked to her on the phone, and that's very important.
Bobby explains he tried her again on Thursday afternoon. When he got no response, he left several messages.
One of the things killers will do sometimes is leave messages on a victim's phone to create alibis for the murder.
We see this as an attempt by the killer to throw the police off the scent, or to throw the family off the scent of the trail, and throw the investigation in another direction.
At that moment, Bobby stuns Agent Harrell with an unsolicited admission.
Bobby said I had her driver license. That's one of the things we were looking for, we couldn't account for.
If you have the property of a dead person on you, you better have a good explanation for how you got it. Because if you don't, you're going down for that murder.
The possession of Misty Morse's driver's license puts Bobby Cooper in the spotlight for her murder.
I asked Bobby, how'd you get her license? And he says, I've had it since we went to the movie. She was wearing pants that didn't have pockets, and she just wanted me to hold on to it. He says something to the effect, well, that's one way we're guaranteed to see each other again.
I think in his mind, if he doesn't cooperate, or he gives a hint that he's not cooperating, that we're going to look at him, as a suspect.
Bobby claims he was at home with his family during the time Misty was killed.
He accounted for his time, and his dad verified that. Bobby was not our guy. Time to move on.
As a homicide agent, you have to be very patient in what you're doing. We have multiple agents interview different people, and at the end of the day, we sit down, okay, what did your guy say? What did your person say? We just review all those and try to put the pieces together as they fall.
Everybody we had interviewed, they can explain where they were or explain their relationship. We just kept moving forward.
Then, police receive a key piece of evidence they've been badly waiting for.
Misty's phone records, when we got them, told us exactly how many seconds, minutes she spoke to certain phone numbers who'd been trying to call her. The phone records is a line-by-line item. It told the story. You can see Bobby Cooper trying to call her over and over again, which corroborated what he said. And what was really important on her phone record is incoming call from Brent Huck's number, twice, just like what he said.
Brent first told detectives the calls were around 4 a.m.
But it was more like 2 o'clock, 2:20 a.m.
It was Brent Huck right back in the time frame of when the mother said of Misty that received these phone calls.
It's easy to lie using the right information, but just maybe changing the time up.
When someone's caught in a lie by police, it definitely sets them up as being a potential suspect. Because police will start questioning as to why they did this, why didn't they tell the truth in the first place, and what were the reasons behind them lying, period.
Brent had a rocky relationship with Misty. He's creating these lies, he's living a lie.
Digging into Huck's personal life, investigators discover what may be an even greater motive.
He's got this girl on Palm Beach County, his new girlfriend, who's supposedly well-connected and maybe wealthy or connected to a wealthy family.
Brent and his girlfriend were in the process of buying a house in South Florida, wedding plans. I mean, they were moving forward with their relationship. But Brent had that problem, and that was Misty back here, that he just wouldn't let go. Looking back, you're wondering if that was the catalyst for Misty saying she was pregnant to everybody, knowing that that's going to get back, hopefully, to the girlfriend.
Police decide to pay the woman a visit.
My understanding was she had no knowledge that Brent Huck was having any type of relationship with Misty. As far as she knew, she was the only female in his life at that point.
Concerned her boyfriend is involved in a homicide investigation, she agrees to cooperate.
One of the investigative techniques would be to flush someone out. To have someone call your suspect, who the suspect might be comfortable to speak to. It's just another form of getting them to speak, getting them to come out of the closet to say something.
She tells Brent that the police want to speak with her about Misty's murder.
Yeah, they're really serious about you.
I know.
Is there anything you want to tell me now before it comes out later?
There's no way about it. I'm not talking on my phone. Period.
Are you getting mad at me now?
I'm not gonna talk on the phone. If you want to get down to the bottom of this, come talk to me. God!
It's not serious.
Goodbye.
It's pretty obvious from the phone call, he's got some anger issues.
And I think he's being found out, you know, that he has this other thing on the side and all that. And of course, she wanted to know, and she wasn't happy about it. And that, I think, was a big part of understanding Brent Huck. That was my first I got you moment. I'm thinking, here we go, this is the guy.
With Brent Huck back in the spotlight, investigators revisit his main claim of innocence, his alibi.
He had told us before, he got home around 3:30 or so in the morning.
They track down Lauren, the young woman who took him home from the night's partying.
She just drove him home. She was going that way, it was no big deal.
But Lauren says she picked Huck up at 2 a.m., 2 hours earlier than the time he first claimed he was home asleep. Which means he could have driven to Misty's house soon after.
We actually asked Lauren, being the last person we know that had contact with him, did he have any injuries on his hands? No, no injuries. So it had to happen that night.
Based on this new information, investigators decide to pay Huck another visit.
Brent talked to a lawyer or two. Of course, they told him not to have any more contact. But we wrote a warrant to go back to the house to do more searching. They find a window spline in the garage. They find cell rope. They find under the sink these Publix bags.
A lot of people have spline in their house. A lot of people may have white tape at their house. A lot of people may have plastic bags at their house. What's the chances of having all three? They were able to determine that that spline came from the exact same machine as the bindings on her body, from the same factory, the same company. Same with the tape. They were able to identify the tape as the exact same tape that was found on her body, exact same company, same make, same physical characteristics, same coloring. A match. And being the last person who talked to her on the phone. So all these things are adding up. It's a lot of circumstantial, but it's all, you know, compounding against him.
But the most compelling evidence proves to be the hair found on Misty's body.
It's an animal hair. It found out to be dog hair. And Brent Huck had a dog.
The DNA really locked it in. This is the dog. It's not just the breed of dog. This is the dog.
In October 2002, Brent Huck is indicted on kidnapping and first-degree murder charges. Key to proving his guilt is the reconstructed timeline.
I think Misty got home from work. Brent was out partying. He hears the rumor that she's telling people that she's pregnant with his baby. So Mr. Huck has got to do something about this. He has Misty claiming that she's the mother of his baby, and he cannot afford to let his new girlfriend hear about this. He's got to shut her up somehow.
He ends up home probably around 2 o'clock. He's mad. He's a hothead. He's arrogant. He's spoiled.
He called her, probably under the pretense to come over to have a sexual relation that they normally have.
He drove there. He called a quick, "I'm downstairs." That explains for the very, very short call that lasted like 10 seconds. She goes downstairs, gets in the car, off they go to his house.
The whole time I think he had it in his mind to go ahead and kill her.
He was able to incapacitate her. He got her tied up, her hands, her feet. Weighed her down with these bags filled with rocks. And took a roll of duct tape and wrapped her head. He puts her in a boat.
At this point, Misty is still alive.
I think that she struggled to get loose. She moved her head around, got the duct tape off of her mouth, begging for her life. He rolls her off the boat in the deepest part of the river. And she sinks.
I think he dumped her in the river while she was alive, knowing that she was going to die.
Despite the strong physical and circumstantial case against him, Huck pleads not guilty.
I don't want to say it's an airtight case, but we're very confident in our case. How do you explain all this? You can't. I think he thought that he could get away with this, maybe a plan in his mind how he was going to do this and how it was going to pan out, but things weren't going his way.
I remember, I think I was holding my breath, and all my muscles were clenched up. And as soon as they said guilty on both counts, I remember, thank goodness.
28-year-old Brent Huck is sentenced to life in prison.
Is it justice? I think justice would be let her daddy spend an hour with him. That would be justice.
I don't want him dead. I want him to spend the next 500 years in jail. And I want him to remember every day of his life what he did. So whatever anyone calls justice, I don't feel it. I'm just glad that he can't do it to anyone else.
To choke somebody to death requires a great deal of intent.
An innocent victim.
She was very much a social butterfly, and everybody knew her.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Love triangles are powder kegs. They are very unstable.
We said, hey, we think she's dead. Did you kill her?
If she's telling him it's over, he really has nothing to lose financially by killing her.
The truth will be revealed.
Boom, this is the guy who did it. Now we just have to prove it.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Anna Maria Island, a 7-mile strip of soft white sand in the Gulf Coast of Florida.
What's unique about Anna Maria Island is it's just naturally beautiful. It's got wide beaches, soft sand. It does attract a lot of tourists, but the community's been able to stay free of corporate tourism. It has that old Florida feel where the buildings are still low to the ground. There's not major signage everywhere, so it's really a gem.
The criminal activity of Anna Maria Island relative to the rest of Manatee County is pretty low. Murders are extremely rare.
It's early morning, November 2008. 2 patrol deputies pull over a white convertible for a broken taillight. But when they approach the car, the driver takes off running.
First thing that pops into their head is probably a stolen car. So the first person you go after is the driver.
The deputies give chase and eventually apprehend Robert Corona, a 2-bit criminal known to local police.
He's a car thief, and he had several convictions for that type of offense. However, he did not have any violent convictions.
When we first talked to him, he said, oh, he met this woman and a man in the Gator Lounge bar, and they wanted some crack. So she loaned me her car to go get it. And not having the whole story, we said, oh, okay.
When investigators run the license plate of the convertible, they see it belongs to 49-year-old hotelier, Sabina Mucielbauer.
Sabina is a native German, and she was in the tourism business there, and so she came to Anna Maria and fell in love with it. She was very much a social butterfly, and sort of everybody knew her. She met her husband, Tom, and they decided to buy a hotel together, which turned out to be Haley's Motel, a nice little popular spot that people really loved.
So I came out to Haley's Motel where Sabine lived with her husband to make notification that her car had been impounded. And I said, well, it was impounded in East Bradenton off 14th Street.
Bradenton is just 9 miles east of Anna Maria Island, but in every way that matters, it's a world apart.
The area is not the best part of town. There is a certain amount of street crime that occurs there.
Her husband, Tom, says that she doesn't go there, she doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't do anything like that. She was not out there. There's prostitutes and bars, and she had no interest in either.
This is so out of line for her. I mean, she is a straight and narrow, definitely was not on drugs.
Would she lend that vehicle to anybody?
Never. She wouldn't let me drive it.
Tom says he hadn't seen Sabina in 2 days.
Tom advised us that they were estranged. They had been estranged for quite a while, and that she was living mostly half a mile away at her boyfriend's apartment, Bill Cumber.
Tom directs investigators to Bill's apartment, but Sabina isn't there either.
When we went to Cumber's residence and was talking to him, he said the last time he saw Sabine, it was like about 10 o'clock, November 4th. It was election night, and she had left to go to a party celebrating the election. Well, she never showed up.
And she was very enthusiastic about President Obama's candidacy. So that was kind of a tip-off right then that something might be wrong.
In my experience, it's very rare for someone to disappear off the face of the earth and not come back within 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. And knowing that their car had been stolen and they were nowhere to be found, that's very quickly a situation that becomes suspicious.
Tasked with investigating Sabina's disappearance is Detective Peter Ramponi.
There's a lot of steps that have to be taken to establish that someone who is missing is indeed dead, and it's very difficult. We checked all of her credit cards, we checked airline flights, but there was no paper trail of her having done anything after 10 o'clock election night, November 4th.
Detective Ramponi impounds the car and calls in the forensic team.
There was evidence in the back of the car which indicated that something had happened. The back seat was cluttered with newspapers, and there was some Halloween stuff back there, and some kind of a stuffed bird thing laying in the back seat. When they moved the bird, we saw the hole. The seat cushion was cut out and the seat padding underneath of it, and it was like you could see the floor of the vehicle.
Investigators conduct a luminol test on the back seat.
Luminol, which you spray on it, and if it turns a certain color, like blue, then it's human blood.
It's definitive. There's blood all around the cutout patch in the back seat.
So they took DNA swabs from around that circular patch, both the inside of the patch and then around it, and then they sent that evidence off for DNA testing.
They also find drops of blood on the exterior rear left door.
We believed at that point, we felt pretty certain that she was dead. We just didn't know where.
A no-body homicide or a suspected murder, but with no body. These are cases that overwhelmingly point to that there is no other conclusion other than that someone has been murdered. And in the absence of a body, you really need to build that evidence through other means.
To find out what happened to Sabina Mucielbauer, detectives must unravel the last 24 hours of her life.
It's extremely important, especially when you have a whodunit kind of thing. You want to establish a timeline so that you can place people where they were or weren't during that period. And you go through and rule them out or add them in.
Their first suspect is the man caught driving Sabina's car in the early hours of November 6th, Robert Corona.
The first person you go after is the driver, because they're more culpable to being involved in a crime. So we decided to go back and talk to Mr. Corona.
The potential theory would have been that Sabine had somehow driven into the city of Bradenton, encountered Mr. Corona, that he had killed her and taken her car.
Corona had initially told them that Sabina had lent him the car to go buy drugs. It sounded plausible, but that was before they found the blood.
So he's confronted and he's told, look, this is basically a homicide investigation. You better be straight with us about how you came into possession of this car.
We said, hey, we think she's dead. Did you kill her? And he readily admitted that he stole the car at that point, that the drug thing was made up by him. And he immediately gave us another story, that he was checking cars behind the businesses. He found one at the Gator Lounge with a window open and the keys in it, how convenient, and drove away and got stopped, arrested.
In an attempt to verify Corona's story, detectives head to the Gator Lounge in Bradenton. They show the night bartenders a picture of Sabina and a picture of her car and ask if they've ever seen either before.
And they both said, no, we've never seen her before. And I asked about the camera in the back of the bar, and he said, it's fake. It's just there for looks. So we said, okay. But the bar manager did say that when she left after the bar closed, she saw Sabine's car parked in the southwest corner of the building, and it was just sitting there.
And that fit what Mr. Corona was saying.
So at that point, we pretty much eliminated Corona.
With Corona's account believed to be true, detectives are now able to narrow down the timeline of Sabina's disappearance.
The bar manager would have seen Sabine's car in the parking lot after 2:30, because that's when the bar was officially emptied, closed. Corona said he went through the parking lot, walking down the back of businesses, and that was the only car in the parking lot. And the time he got pulled over was just minutes after he took the car.
The fact that the bar manager sees the vehicle there in the early morning hours of the 6th tells the investigators that sometime between 10 and 11 p.m., when Cumber says he last saw her alive, and the time that her vehicle is first observed at the Gator Lounge, she's likely been killed.
With Corona ruled out, investigators are looking at just two main suspects.
One of the things you do when you have a homicide, the first thing you look at is the immediate circle of family and friends. And in this case, you know, Tom was there, Cumber was there, and really nobody else was there.
In cases where a female spouse is the victim of homicide, we logically think of intimate partners. And in this case, you know, you have the husband who's a business partner, and then we also have a current boyfriend with some potential motivation as well.
We got a lot of phone calls from friends of Sabine, and some people said, well, Tom did it, Tom did it. And, you know, other people were saying, Bill Cumber did it. So it's a mind game.
With little physical evidence to work with in the no-body homicide of Sabina Mucielbauer, detectives are looking at both her husband and her boyfriend as possible suspects. They start by interrogating her boyfriend.
Tom and Sabine had been married for years at the time of her disappearance. But the new element in her life was William Cumber.
Bill Cumber's 39 years old, and he's known as quite a charismatic guy around town. And, some people would say he was a good-looking gentleman.
Mr. Cumber was very candid about his background. He said he had a history of getting angry at women and doing violent acts when scorned. He confessed to that and was convicted of that and went to prison for that.
But he insists that he's a changed man.
I haven't had any rage episodes. I used to have them a long time ago. Okay. But I've done things to train myself, to help my temper. I've been to classes. I quit drinking liquor. Okay. I only drink beer. I don't do drugs. I've got my mind focused on where I'm heading in life.
Bill credits Sabina with giving him the new start he so desperately needed 3 years earlier.
Bill Cumber showed up at Haley's motel one day, had told a story of how he had just gotten out of prison and was looking for work. He said, I am coming from a difficult past where I have been in prison. I'm very handy with things. Is there anything I can do around your hotel for a little walk-in money? So he began to do little projects because they're very welcoming, heartfelt people who saw a guy they wanted to help.
Bill tells detectives that what started as a friendship between Sabina and himself soon became something more.
He was a craftsman. He was an excellent woodworker. Saw some of the things he had made and they were just astounding. And I believe he was an artist as well. So she was kind of receptive to those traits that this guy portrayed and possessed.
Bill's criminal past is viewed as suspicious, so investigators ask him for a detailed breakdown of the last day he spent with Sabina.
He said they had gone to the dentist in the afternoon, Sabine and Cumber, and she was paying for him to have some dental work done. And I think she left him for a time and then came back to the apartment on Magnolia Avenue where they had dinner. According to Mr. Cumber, that he made vegetarian spaghetti. She drank wine.
Everything was going good. She was happy the boats were coming in with Obama. And I decided to step outside and smoke a cigarette. But she caught me coming in. She doesn't want me to smoke. She ain't gonna be around a smoker. She can't stand the smell of smoke. And she just decides to leave.
You see her drive away, or?
No, I don't go outside and chase her down or anything.
Okay, so she leaves. Around what time is it?
This was around 10:20 p.m., somewhere around there.
Mr. Cumber claimed that he had not spoken to Sabine since then. He had been attempting to reach her by phone several times.
Probably like 5-6 times.
Okay. And she never called you back?
No.
He then went over to Haley's motel on the morning of the 5th to confer with Tom Buehler about her disappearance. Mr. Cumber claimed Tom Buehler had told him that Sabine sometimes just went off on her own and would reappear.
I said, well, did you hear anything from her? Could you tell her to call me? And he goes, don't try and hunt her down. When she's ready to come back around, she'll come back around. So I took it at that.
He didn't seem upset. He didn't appear to be in any frantic hurry to help look for her.
Detectives subpoena Bill's phone records to see if he's telling the truth about trying to reach her.
There were no calls. Nothing. After 10 o'clock on November 4th, there's no record of him calling anybody. And that's a big red flag.
While they can't rule Bill out, detectives struggle to find a reason why he might want Sabina dead.
She was taking care of him completely. She was renting the apartment, providing the food. She was the money person. And so that didn't really add up very well.
This relationship was serving many needs for Bill. He gets out of prison, he has nothing. He has somebody who's willing to cultivate a relationship with him and even financially support that relationship.
Mr. Cumber obviously was a suspect given his prior history, but police were never able to find any ultimate motive that established him as the perpetrator. He was losing a great deal with her being gone.
He's still on the list and we're watching, but evidence and interviews and situations took us in a different direction.
When asked who he thinks would want to hurt Sabina, Bill points the finger directly at her husband, Tom, insisting he was jealous of their relationship.
He has made threats in the past towards me about, when he caught us sleeping together at the motel.
Love triangles are powder kegs. They are very unstable. You introduce jealousy, you introduce resentment, you introduce humiliation. And those can be powerful motivators for someone who needs to be in control.
Then, out of the blue, investigators get a call that a fire has broken out at Haley's motel.
When the fire broke out at the hotel, it was such a second shock that immediately people believed that the two were related, her disappearance and the fire, and whether Tom maybe said it because the hotel was struggling.
Fire is always a great eradicator of evidence. That's why when it shows up in an unusual or suspicious circumstance, you always need to dig deeper in terms of, was the fire the main crime?
After a fire rages through Haley's motel, just 12 days after Sabina's disappearance, investigators hone in on her estranged husband, Tom.
To me, the obvious or intuitive reasoning behind why Tom may have burned down the hotel is obviously, number one, to potentially destroy evidence. Number two, we come back to money. Fires equal insurance settlements for the most part, and in this case, you could have that double whammy.
With heightened suspicions about Tom's involvement in Sabina's disappearance, detectives subpoena the motel's financial records.
There was some financial problems. The business wasn't doing that well, and Tom had a buyer from Europe, Germany to be specific, who was interested in buying the place. And with Sabine being gone, Tom gets all the money.
With money being a possible motive, detectives asked Tom whether or not he had taken out an insurance policy on Sabina's life.
Tom told one of my detectives that he has an insurance policy out on her for $100,000. Tom volunteered that. He forgot about the $300,000 policy he had taken out years before. And that concerned us as well.
Not only that, investigators discover that he recently filed court papers to have Sabina officially declared dead.
Insurance companies are obviously very meticulous about confirming death before paying out. And that's why proof of death is often necessary, and people who are after these types of settlements will ensure that there is that proof.
And as that played out, people started to dig up those possible feelings of, well, if they haven't found her, why would he want her declared dead at this point? You know, maybe there's still hope she's alive. This is kind of strange.
With their suspicions deepening, detectives question Tom about his whereabouts between 10 p.m. on November 4th and 2:30 a.m. November 6th, the window in which they believe Sabina was killed.
Tom said he was attending an election party and was there with his girlfriend, and there were several people that would have attested to his whereabouts during the time of her disappearance.
Alibis can be tricky in that just because you were at a certain place at a certain time doesn't necessarily mean that you couldn't have also been somewhere else immediately thereafter and returned to the original place. We may be dealing with a large, as we are in this case, window of time where you had the opportunity to literally be in multiple places, not at once, but in immediate succession.
Detectives search Tom's house, looking for any evidence of foul play.
Tom had an injury on his head, small scratch, and we asked him about it. And he said, I was hanging some blinds in my bedroom, and when I was hanging them, they fell on me and struck me in the head. So he went and looked at the blinds, and they were kind of askew, and there's a little drop of blood on one of the blinds, which is consistent with the story he had told us. So he didn't hide it. You know, he told us right away where he got it.
And when the fire marshal tests Tom's hands for accelerant found in the motel's debris, they find nothing. Finally, detectives confront Tom about Bill's claim that he was jealous of his wife's extramarital relationship.
She felt madly in love with this guy. Okay? It worked, the thinking. It made me angry at first. You know, I just couldn't believe she would do this. And so it was there that I accepted everything that she had done. We didn't talk about Bill. I had told her, okay, you do what you need to do, but he's not going to be at the house, and he's not going to be at the motel.
So you still had some feelings.
Well, we did. We did. You know, we were very close friends. We hopefully still are.
Tom said the romantic aspect of the relationship had ended years ago, but they remained friends and business associates.
They had the house divided. He lived in one half, she lived in the other. The kitchen was in the middle, that was neutral. They both stayed out of each other's way.
Tom had a girlfriend, so the idea that somehow he suddenly became enraged and jealous at this particular point didn't seem very likely.
But despite the fact that detectives aren't able to conclusively rule out Tom or Bill at this point, there just isn't enough evidence to charge either of them in Sabina's disappearance.
I only have heard of one case where they prosecuted somebody without a body and they got a conviction. And we really had to get a body.
The sheriff's office brings in cadaver dogs to search a section of the beach near Haley's motel.
We felt pretty certain she had been buried out at the beach somewhere. We started using dogs, ground-penetrating radar. Then we used a bulldozer, and we would scrape very little. And if they hit a branch or something, they'd stop. And we'd dig around it and find, oh, no, keep going. And we dug up a mile of beach, very wide, and went down as deep as you could.
But they come up empty-handed.
It got to a point where, no, nobody's dragging a body this far.
Then, a tip comes in.
There were two women who claimed to have seen someone who looked like Sabina at the airport.
There's cases of missing persons who go on vacation for, say, a month and don't tell anybody. And they come back from their vacation and everybody's wondering, you know, where they've been. So it was raised as a distinct possibility. Could she have gone somewhere and not returned? Or maybe she'll show up?
But she would have had to use some form of money to survive on, and we couldn't find a trace of that.
There was no record of Sabine having taken any flight. Also, video camera footage from the airport was reviewed, and there was no image of Sabine at the airport at the time the women claimed to have seen her.
Tip lines are a double-edged sword. When the tips are screened properly and you have someone actually to follow up on them, they can be very good. Naturally, once they're set up, you're going to bring the cranks out of the woodwork. And a lot of these people will call in with well-intentioned tips, not knowing that they're just creating red herrings, but they can really bog down police departments. You can find yourself in a quicksand very, very quickly.
Yeah, there's some frustration, absolutely, but there was also determination. You have to chase every lead until you hit a wall. And then you go to the next lead and you're chasing that one until you gather enough information, or you hit a wall.
Detectives finally catch a break in the case when they get a call from a neighbor of Sabina's who lives on the beach.
They have a sidewalk which is just wide enough for, say, a golf cart to go down, and it runs parallel to the beach. There was a little jut of wooded area that came off that sidewalk towards the beach with trees, and the neighbor, he was out clearing out some stuff, and he moved some logs or debris, and he found a person there. He did open it and look, and it was Sabine's purse. But he had her ID and some, I guess, credit cards, a cell phone. Whoever disposed of it there had to know the area kind of to be on that walkway that's, you know, only accessible by side streets, and this wasn't near a side street. It just made us think, well, I know who knows this area pretty well.
The discovery of Sabina's purse buried near the beach provides the first solid clue to who might be responsible for her murder.
Its location is critical because it's just a couple blocks down from Mr. Cumber's residence on Magnolia Avenue. And it just keeps pointing back to Mr. Cumber, that he is the person responsible.
With that in mind, detectives take a closer look at Bill's prison record.
A few years before, Mr. Cumber met a woman, felt that she had rejected him, and so he set fire to the residence that she was residing in at a time she and several other individuals were inside the house.
Now knowing that Bill's history includes an arson conviction, investigators question him directly about the fire at Haley's motel.
Fire marshal said there was an accelerant used. At some point, I believe the fire marshal spoke with Cumber. They did some kind of test, and he had some kind of accelerant on his hands. And Cumber explained that away as at his workshop, his lock was stuck, and he sprayed WD-40 in there.
Mr. Cumber does allow them to search his apartment. They looked for any kind of gasoline containers. They examined the area of the apartment for traces of an accelerant, but they weren't able to find anything to definitively link him to the arson. But they find blood on the couch inside the apartment, which they then take swabs of and submit for DNA testing.
Then, detectives notice something else.
I noticed on his hand, he had a wound right in the center of his palm. And I asked him, I said, where did you get that? And he goes, oh, I was riding my bike and I skidded and I fell into the shells and I scraped my hand. Now, I've done that my entire life as a kid. You don't get a blister in the middle of your hand. That blister on his hand was from a shovel.
Detectives bring Cumber down to the station for a more serious sit-down. What they see solidifies their suspicions.
We had him come into the office, and Detective Alvarado and Detective Kenny interviewed him. I was watching on a video, and they questioned him for quite a while, and they asked him, what about the cut in the seat? Something to that effect, and he made an up and down motion like he was holding a knife and making a circle and cutting out the seat cover.
So for him to have made that gesture indicated he knew the shape that had been cut out of the seat.
I was watching the video, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's how the seat cover was taken out.
Mr. Cumber would have had no means of knowing that other than having been the person who cut out the piece of upholstery.
And in our minds then, boom, this is the guy who did it. Now we just have to prove it.
Detectives decide to force Bill into showing his hand.
Police will often bluff suspects by presenting them with claims of evidence that they don't actually have in hopes of getting an admission.
Detectives know that the camera at the back of the Gator Lounge, where Sabina's car was found, isn't functional. It's a fake, but Bill doesn't know that.
When we interviewed Cumber the next evening, we mentioned to him, well, there's a camera out behind the Gator Lounge. We haven't got the tape yet. And then when we do, we got to process it, which is nonsense. But whoever dropped that car off is going to be on that video.
That led Mr. Cumber to go to the Gator Lounge and confront the manager and ask, in fact, whether they had video cameras trained on the parking lot, which only a guilty person would have done. No innocent person would be concerned that he had appeared on a video. So that was one of the most telling aspects of the case that pointed to Mr. Cumber's guilt.
That was an indication that we're on the right track. You know, we got him. We just got to get him.
While investigators wait for the lab to process the blood found in Bill's apartment, they uncover an important clue.
November 4th, sometime after 10, Sabine's car had been parked out on the beach, a quarter of a mile away from the apartment she shared with William. And that raised concern. And the reason we found that out is because deputy was driving around that night and he saw the car parked in a no parking zone and he wrote it a ticket.
The discovery helps illuminate Sabina's movements on the night she disappeared.
The timeline we had was Sabine's last known to be with Mr. Cumber between 10 and 11, according to his statement. Her car is documented 2 blocks away by the parking ticket at 5:10 a.m. on the 5th. So roughly 6 hours after he last said he'd been with her. Well, it's only 2 blocks away from where Mr. Cumber lives. It would make sense for him to want to place her car somewhere other than their residence if he's killed her. And then, of course, he can easily walk the distance back to his residence that evening.
It gave us a timeline, told us where the vehicle had been, as opposed to the Gator Lounge, and it just kind of all fit.
When detectives attempt to arrest Bill, they find that he's left town.
He was making a getaway, trying to disappear. Fleeing is kind of a good indicator of guilt.
As investigators zero in on Bill Cumber for the suspected homicide of Sabina Mucielbauer, he's apprehended, fleeing the state.
He's heading up north towards I-4, and he had a tail light out, and he shouldn't have been driving. He's got no license. And he's on probation. Well, normally a violation of probation, you know, you may get a little bit of jail time, or you can get before a judge who finds out there's a murder investigation going on, and you can get 13, 14 years, which is what he got. So he's on ice.
That gave us all some breathing space to try to continue the investigation without having to worry that, you know, he could potentially kill somebody else.
Meanwhile, the detectives finally get the forensic results from the blood taken from Sabina's car.
DNA is perhaps the most persuasive physical evidence you can have. We had Mr. Cumber's DNA on the driver's seat area and also in and around the area that had been cut out in the back seat, and we have Sabine's blood in the area that's been cut out. Keeping in mind that Mr. Cumber supposedly had never driven that car. So we decided we had all the evidence we were going to get. We were probably not going to find her body, and so ultimately the decision was made to charge Mr. Cumber with murder.
As they prepare their case against Bill Cumber, detectives put pressure on him to confess.
We hounded him for years and years. We just didn't let up, and he just was exhausted and knew he was going to be in jail for a long time, and he just gave up.
Today's date is October the 15th, 2015. Mr. Cumber has agreed to give us a statement concerning the death of Sabine Mucielbauer and give us information concerning the location of her body.
Cumber finally tells detectives exactly what happened to Sabina Mucielbauer in her last 24 hours.
She took him to the dental office for him to get some dental work done. And he was observed to be in ill temper. They then watched the election returns. She drank a bottle of wine, and somewhere in the area of 10 to 11, he tried to smoke a cigarette. She found out about it and basically told him it was over.
It wasn't just the smoking, it was the controlling issues that Tom was having on us. I didn't like that, I wasn't digging that, and she would side with him.
So Sabine's saying she can't go on with this anymore. What happens at that point?
I lose control. I hit her in the head, and then, I don't know, it's a disgusting situation, man.
And what do you do at that point?
I reached and grabbed her throat and started choking her out until she wasn't moving. I decided I didn't want to go back to prison.
He then wrapped her up in a blanket, put her in the back seat of the car, and he decided he was going to bury her out on the beach.
The following day, he takes the car, drives it into Bradenton. This is now November 5th, 2008. And he leaves it at the Gator Lounge with the keys in the ignition in the hopes that someone will take it and thus become the prime suspect in Miss Mucielbauer's disappearance. He takes the last bus back to the island and goes back to the apartment that they had shared. I don't think Mr. Cumber planned to kill her prior to the evening of November 4th. I believe he was angry at the loss of what she could provide for him financially. Having been denied something he wanted, he chose to kill her. However, to choke somebody to death requires a great deal of intent. It's not a split-second act like shooting a gun in the heat of the moment. It requires a sustained effort, which shows some intent to kill.
In exchange for a reduced sentence, Cumber agrees to reveal the location of Sabina's grave.
Mr. Cumber then got in a law enforcement vehicle and took the police to the location, which was a couple of blocks away from Haley's Motel, under a covered area where people can sit on a bench and look at the beach. He was somber. He kneeled down at the burial site, supposedly said a prayer. He affected remorse. Whether he actually felt it, I don't know.
Investigators begin digging for Sabina's remains.
We started finding items associated with Sabine roughly 3 feet down from the surface of the sand. Her clothing was with her. I believe a piece of jewelry was with her. The remains were completely skeletonized. I think finding the body provided the family with a measure of relief and certainty that they had lacked. I think ultimately this was something that gave them some peace of mind.
Bill is sentenced to 20 years in prison. He will be eligible for parole when he is 60 years old.
The timeline is important in all murder cases, but in this case, because she initially wasn't found, we had to come up with a convincing narrative, potentially to a jury, that in fact she is dead, and this is why we know she's dead. And the timeline was basically the critical aspect of that narrative.
But the victory is bittersweet.
You never forget the family members of the victims. You never forget their trauma. It's the ultimate act of violence, and it disturbs a family, typically, and in this case, it disturbed an entire community.
You got to weigh closure against sorrow and loss, you know? And that's a difficult thing to measure. For the family, can't ever really be closure. Because you wake up every day and you know they're gone.